Clint Eastwood has acted in more than 50 films and directed more than 24. Here is a montage of his work.
Now, we've got to talk.
Have I done something wrong?
I'm just trying to be straight with you, that's all.
Oh, be nice to me instead.
Jesus Christ.
I don't understand. Are you trying to say you don't love me anymore?
I never told you that I loved you.
The ambush, what would it cost us?
Sheriff, I don't know as if I really like this town that much.
Well, this is a God-fearing town. These God-fearing people.
You like him, you save him.
I say, would you like a blindfold, Miss Lily? And you say no, Bronco Billy, because you're the best shot, not the best marksman. And when I say I'll use one, where does it say, bust you, Bronco Billy? It doesn't say that here, does it?
No.
Every assistant I've had for the last 10 years has said exactly what's on this paper, and that's the way I want it continued. You understand?
Come, fill the cup, and in the fire of spring, your winter garment of repentance fling. The bird of time has but a little way to flutter, and the bird is on the wing.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got, and all he's ever gonna have.
Yeah. Oh, I guess they had it coming.
We all have it coming, kid.
We're hardly two separate people now. And, some people search all their life for this and never find it. Others don't even think it exists. You're gonna tell me that this is the right thing to do? Giving it up?
Harry was just about to show us the latest addition to his arsenal.
Oh,
No, oh my God. Oh, wow, you know what that is? That is a 25. My late husband blew his brains out with one of those. So did mine.
Team Daedalus. Jerry, Hawk, Tank, send us up.
This is a joke, am I right?
It's no joke. We were the best of the best. Even you'll admit to that, Bob.
Uh-huh. And how old are you, Frank?
Old enough to know your ass is in a sling. I'm alive because she's dead. So that puts me in this thing big time. Now, you're an ass and you can't help it. But I'm on this case for a while. I'm going to be along until we get this guy. I don't care whether it's you or him or whoever. I'm in this thing for the full ride.
His latest film is Mystic River. It stars Sean Penn, Tim Robbins, Kevin Bacon, Marcia Gay Harden, Laura Linney, and Lawrence Fishburne. Here is a trailer.
Hey, Divine. What you looking at?
The old neighborhood.
There are places that make us who we are.
Save!
I used to play on this street when I was a kid.
Really?
Moments that give us hope.
Do not make her laugh.
Where have you been?
Feelings that make us question our beliefs. Fears that trigger our darkest emotions.
It's my daughter's car.
He said my daughter in there! He said my daughter in there! Get out! Oh, God!
A couple seconds on Saturday, she looked at me like she was preparing to never see me again.
You don't think I'd hurt her, do you?
She isn't hurt, Brendan. She's dead.
I loved her so much.
I know in my soul I contributed to your death, but I don't know how.
I'm gonna find him before the police do. I'm gonna find him and I'm gonna kill him.
You know what I was thinking about? Vampires. Maybe one day you wake up and you forget what it's like to be human. Maybe then it's okay.
You're not making any sense.
Sometimes I think all of this is just a dream, you know?
How about you tell us what really happened Saturday night, Mr. Boyle? And why's your wife acting like she's afraid of you, huh?
Everyone is weak. Everyone but us. You could rule this town.
We bury our sins here.
Run! Run! Dave, run!
If the mark of a great director is getting amazing performances from his actors, Clint Eastwood has reached that point. He himself has said, "This is as good as I can do." Mystic River opened the 41st New York Film Festival on October 3rd. I am pleased to have Clint Eastwood on this program for his first solo interview. Welcome.
Thank you.
When you read this book, did you immediately say, "I've got to have this, I've got to make this, this is a movie that I've been waiting for"?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I read it as a synopsis in a newspaper, in a book column, and I knew of Dennis Lehane, and so I kind of was curious about it. So I read the synopsis, and I said, I've got to have this. I think I can make an interesting movie out of this. I didn't. It was just a little bird in the back of the brain, and then when I read this the novel, then I was more convinced that it could be an interesting movie.
What was it about it? The story, the characters?
Well, it was a complex story, and I've done a few complex stories before, but it was the fact that it was a unraveling of a mystery that goes back several generations, and when you start out with these young guys as 11-year-old kids on the street playing street hockey, and then this incident happens, this abduction happens to one of them, and then years later they're reunited through a tragic event, and so in the reuniting they see all the various things. You see what their lives have been like, and what that abduction that happened 30 years ago, what effect it still has on everyone.
Child abuse, though, and the victimization of children has always been something that has interested you because you know the consequences for them.
I think that was one of the intriguing parts, the stealing of someone's life, the stealing of innocence, I think is the most deplorable crime that I can think of. I think it's a capital crime. If there is a capital crime, that would certainly be the epitome.
The innocence of the...
Yeah, just to take someone's life away from them, take their youth away from them. And I think that character played by Tim Robbins, I think Tim captured that beautifully in the film, that you can see all over him and in every scene how he's been robbed of his youth and his innocence, the chance to grow up and to learn things in its normal stride. Mm-hmm. Very interesting subject matter, and to have this picture unravel, this story unravel along with it, and one of the three fellows is now a police officer, played by Kevin Bacon, and he and his associate Lawrence Fishburne, they have to try to unravel this, while Sean Penn's character Jimmy is in a bereaved situation. So you have a family that's grieving on one side, and you have this trying to solve this mystery on the other, working simultaneously together.
There are those who want to say Clint is, in a sense, because of his exploration of violence in a whole series of films, is almost commenting on his earlier work, and that this is an evolution. And do you buy that? Is that part of your own?
Well, I guess that's an interpretation that somebody could have, somebody may have had, but I don't think so. I think my earlier work was a different person. I was a younger person, young guy with the brass ring. Things were going rather well for me in the motion picture business as an actor, and I did what came along, and some of it was a lot of fun at the time. Now, would it be fun today if I was doing it? No, probably not, because I've matured. I have different thoughts about things, different philosophies. I think everybody should. That's
if you're not growing and evolving, then if you're not moving forward, then you're staying still.
You're going downward or stagnant, and I don't intend to be stagnant. And that is. I think it's helped me in the long run, because over the years I've reached out and tried other things, some of them successfully, some of them maybe not so, but I've at least tried them in order to branch out. I could have been very comfortable saying I'm an action star. I got a lot of things, and people want me. They want me to shoot, and
I'll do what they want. I'll give them what they want at the time being.
6 shots or only 5, and that kind of business. But that is that was then, and now is now. So I can't get as intellectual maybe as somebody who is in a more objective position. I'm just doing things as the ramifications of Dirty Harry and everything. To me, Don Siegel and I just thought it was a good detective story and not much else.
And what about Unforgiven, though?
Well, Unforgiven was a screenplay that I bought 10 years earlier, maybe even earlier than that, maybe 10, 11 years. But as I read it at the time, I liked it very much, but I always felt that I needed to mature into it.
I always wondered why you waited 10 years to do that, because it was not right for you at the time you bought it.
I could have done it then, but it was to me it was something I knew I could do at a later time. I felt it would be better for me to do it at a later time, so that's why I held on to it. And one day, just out of a whim in the early '90s, I just said, okay, it's time to bring this out. I took it out, reread it, and got stoked up and started doing.
You think it's the best movie you've ever made?
I don't know what the best movie I've ever made is. I just make them. There's somebody else to judge them. I'm happy with the current one.
Oh, you got to be happy. I mean, people are saying that this ranks right up there with Unforgiven.
Well, I hope it does. But at least when I look on film, I just think this is what I intended to do. It came out the way I intended. Now, for whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's got to be the eyes of the beholder out there. This child has now gone out into the world to be judged on its own merit.
Tell me about the casting of Sean Penn, whose performance has been praised up one side and down the other, as have other actors in this. But Sean's performance has just gotten extraordinary.
Well, Sean was the first actor I cast in the film.
Why did you want him?
And I just felt it's very, very hard to find. These people have all got to be in their early 40s or mid-40s, and so I needed actors in that range. But Sean has an edge to him. I was a particular fan of Sweet and Low Down, and several other performances he had done. I think everybody rates Sean. I'm fond of saying everybody rates Sean as very highly, and I think he's better than he's rated. But he's terrific, and what's even better for me was that when he came on this is he's extremely easy to work with, and very professional and ready to go.
Well, that's what they say about you.
Well, maybe so, and I hope maybe I had some influence on it.
Well, I mean, you're not a guy that does 20 takes. You're a guy that does 3 or 4 takes.
Well, I'm a ready-to-go person, and I'm trying for things right away. And whether it's and all of these actors got with that spirit. And I'd worked with the 2 ladies, Laura Linney and Marcia Gay Harden, are terrific ladies that I've had the pleasure of working with, and it was a chance to reunite with them in their great roles. And I hadn't worked with the guys, but I ran to Kevin Bacon some years ago in Deauville, and he said, God, I'd love to work with you. I said, well, I'd love to work with you. And it was one of those kind of things.
Yeah, well, you know,
so all of a sudden, you go back and, hey, I remember that we talked about them. I said, he's a terrific actor. And Tim, I've always thought he's great, did some great things. He's a fine director. These guys all have directed film, by the way, and all very well. So it was a great experience. They loved the material, they loved the book, they loved the script, and they were ready to go.
So you got a great script, you got a great story, you got great actors. What did you do?
Nothing. I just
showed up.
When you have all that, the casting. A lot of people I've heard other directors say this too. I've heard them say that if you have a really good story and you cast it, you're 90% there, and there's something to that. Now, of course, there's a lot of detail and a lot of things to be done, but to downplay the importance is fine because you are there. I mean, you are on the road. You've got a thing, and it's for you to screw up. And that's the way I felt about this, and the way I felt about Unforgiven, the way I felt about a lot of shows. I've got the cast I want. I've got the story I want. Now it's just for me to drop the ball.
This is the best ensemble you've had since Unforgiven.
Well, I think it's one of the best ensembles I've had.
Period.
Yeah, period. Yeah, it's as good as any I've had. Yeah, I would say that.
There is no, in Unforgiven, there was Clint Eastwood as an actor.
Mm-hmm. Well, we didn't
in
we
Mystic
didn't have
River,
that problem
there's
here. No, Unforgiven was a really nice role for me too.
Yeah.
So that had another satisfaction. But in this one, it was easier because I didn't have to be in it.
Easier.
Never. Yeah. Now, Unforgiven, when in constructing that film, there were large sequences that I wasn't in, so it did give me a breather here and there. But in this one, it's nice to be behind the camera.
Someone wrote about the film, because a lot of people saw it when it was screened at the Cannes Film Festival, who hasn't seen it yet, and they talked about there is a restraint here. You had such powerful performances that it almost has an element of restraint on any part. The directing is very straightforward because the performances are so powerful.
It's a philosophy of mine is you don't intrude.
Intrude was a word that
you do not if I start intruding and getting fancy and trying to dazzle people with the whatever tricks I may or may not have as a director, all of a sudden I'm tampering with something. To me, I guess coming from the acting side of the business or art form or whatever you want to call it, I revere the performances, and I want to see this ensemble at their best. And I do a lot of things, but I don't want people to visualize a camera and a camera operator and a guy with a focus thing and another person back. And I don't want people to visualize that in the movements around in the picture. So I keep everything as quiet and subtle as I can, at the same time punctuating the points you need to punctuate.
Yeah. Does your biggest impact come in the editing room then?
Well, the biggest impact comes in structuring, getting all the pieces. Once you have all the pieces, one of the more enjoyable parts of directing a film is the editing room, because at that point you no longer have a large crew, with large expenses and people, and actors and trailers and what. You just get up in the morning. You go to a room and with an editor and maybe an assistant editor, and you sit there and you start running down through sequences.
Yeah, you start putting all the things together. You got all the elements there.
Exactly.
You've never wanted to write?
Well, I've written a lot. I've written sequences. I've rewritten scripts. But I've never had that knack.
It's a knack. It's not. You never felt you had the skill or the knack. What's that mean?
Well, it's a knack. It's a very interesting process. If somebody can just sit there and think of a story, and you think of a story, a complicated story like this one, starting with the book, to write all that out. It takes a lot of thinking. It takes a vivid imagination, and then the screenwriter, the same thing. If you're starting the screenplay from scratch, if you're adapting, of course you're adapting other material. But if you're starting from scratch to just come up with a screenplay, and you always go, wow. And if you look at enough bad ones, and I have over the years, and back in television and stuff where people are just kind of hacking them out, you really appreciate the good ones when they come along, because you appreciate the effort and the talent that goes into it. So what the director becomes, and the actors too, are interpretive people, interpretive artists, whatever you want to call them.
Was it difficult to get this made? I mean, when you took it to Warner Brothers and said, this is what I want to do, they've always had an attitude, whatever Clint wants to do, we want to back him because he's been good for us.
Well, that's most of the time. On one or two occasions. Years ago, I took this is when Frank and John Calley.
Frank Wells and John Calley were there.
I took it to Frank. Lenny Hershan took a script that I liked called Thunderbolt Nightfoot to him, and they said, no, we don't want to do it at this price and all that. So about 20 minutes later, we had a deal at United Artists, so we went over there and did it, and the picture was successful. And so the bonus was a little chagrined at that point. However, they've been always very good about leaving me alone. I sort of act as an independent production there. They don't, and they liked this script, but they knew it was unrelenting, and they knew it wasn't. After all, this is the studio that's making, that's releasing Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and the Matrix movies and all these movies with what they call high concept things and lots of action, tons of, and all of a sudden here a guy comes along and says, I got this thing about an abducted guy, and then these guys
it's child
meet later
abuse and the guy
on,
and there's revenge, and it's very dark.
And it's very, very dark, and at the end if this happens and that happens, and they're sitting there going, yeah, excite me some more. and so I couldn't excite them any less probably. But anyway, Alan Horn, he said, we'll do it, but only at a certain price.
And the price was $25 million, it said,
yeah,
which is pretty cheap for a film today.
Well, all in, actually, he would have gone higher than that, a little higher than that, but we had to, again, I'm back to where I was 33 years ago. I was back saying, well, you take the Screen Directors Guild minimum and just go.
You did. You took the Directors Guild minimum yourself,
yeah,
and the actors worked probably at minimum.
No, they didn't. The actors came in a little bit better because you can't get actors. Right. I mean, you can't do that, but I can do that because it's a project. I'm the salesman of the project as well, and so. Yeah, but you have to pay the actors, and Sean and Tim and Kevin and Lawrence and Marcia Gay and Laura. They deserve. I would never try to slight the actor. I always believe in
paying
actors.
Them.
They should have. I'd love to give them double, but that doesn't always work so well. So there you go.
Well, Donald Sutherland, you remember the story he told at the Kennedy Honors? Donald Sutherland comes up to introduce a film about you, and he said, it's every actor wants to get a call from Clint saying, I want you to be in my movie. So Sutherland says, you call and you say, I want you to be in my movie, and the pay is $100,000. And the first thing the actor does is say, who do I send the check to?
yeah. He said, give me a few days to raise the money.
Right.
Yeah, that was.
That said something.
Yeah. No, Don. Loves that joke. And
I did too.
It's sort of a typical actor's joke. They're so desperate to work.
I'll pay you. Mm. Was there much playing with the script, or pretty much what was on the page got to the screen?
Once the script was completed?
Yeah.
Pretty much stayed with it. I always stay in a state of flexibility, and I figure a script is a blueprint, but it's not a blueprint you have to stay with exactly. If something comes up that looks better or can enhance a sequence, I'll go ahead and do it. So I sort of wing along that way. But this material was so good, we weren't doing a lot of repairs, and the actors everybody kind of liked it the way it was. So there we were. Sometimes I've done outright improvisations, and I still do that, and we've done some here.
There are two things that are extraordinary about this as you go through. There are lots of things, but in the beginning is the scene with the kids. I mean, that's the first thing you see. And I'm told that had a powerful meaning for you to see this opening scene, number one. I don't know if it's true or not. The other thing is that at the end you have a narration summing up. I mean, some sense of really tying up this story and a realization of how it's come to be. And you see it both in the parade, the characters, the relationship between them. It really has come full circle from where it began. And the recognition by all of them of what's happened, what it means, and that life goes on.
Yeah. Well, we revisit every single character and what the impact of the story has had on them. Yeah. And Marcia Gay, of course, is feeling one thing, and Kevin Bacon's character is feeling another. And there's somewhat of a hope in some of the characters, and somewhat of a terrible loss, heart-wrenching loss, and on other characters. And one has been given has found his Lady Macbeth to give him complete strength and start him off on a new life and cover his guilt.
All right, roll tape. This is a scene between, first time we see Tim Robbins. He and Sean are on the back porch talking. This is a recognition, both of them, of the pain that Sean Penn is going through. Here it is. Let me talk about Tim Robbins here, because with Sean, I mean, he has in both his other roles we've seen him in, there is a certain, he plays strong characters. Mm-hmm. Tim has done that too, and strong characters who have a certain moral code. Mm-hmm. Here you see Tim, in your own words, he has transformed himself.
He has, and people have asked, what did we do to him to transform him? As some trick of makeup or what have you, but he didn't. It's just Tim just put himself in that state, and he felt that he understood how this person would be, someone who's had that kind of incident inflicted on him at a young age, and what the baggage that he has to carry.
He was a victim of pedophiles when he was
exactly.
in the opening scene. You see him taken away.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
and he shows that in the way he holds his shoulders, the way he looks down, the way he's haunted by that experience.
It's all up to him. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and in this particular thing, and I mentioned to you earlier, the casting would have been easy to take a smaller person who looked more vulnerable, but Tim's a big man. He's 6'5", and he's but in a way it became even better because he's a kid who, though his life was robbed, he did have some elements. He went on to be shortstop in high school baseball and what have you, and so he had a somewhat of a life, but still he's carrying this burden all the time. And here he's now a father with a young boy of his own, and he isn't the man he should have been.
When you have had this experience that you have had, are you always drawing on things that you have done before? I mean, somehow scenes, in the same way that they always have certain classic elements of vengeance and jealousy and love, and you have expressed those in different ways. Are you thinking about other movies you have seen, or as you construct?
No, not really. At least not consciously. Everyone is a product of what they've viewed through their life, and I grew up watching movies in an era when there wasn't any television, there wasn't anything else that you listened to at home. That was
so you were shaped by John Ford and Sturgis
absolutely.
And Howard Hawks and
absolutely.
those guys.
Those were the guys, and there was plus a ton of other people that we don't know the names of who made all the B movies that went on, and it was. Sure, you're shaped by things you've seen that were good. You say, gee, I like that, or I like the way this was done. But I didn't really think of any particular movie. I just think in terms of what I wanted to accomplish in every scene.
The idea of shooting and getting it ready. I mean, the fact that you're famous for in a sense, simplicity and for getting it done in 4. Is that because you believe that actors ought to be able to perform it and ought to be able to do it, and that if shooting 20 takes and 25 takes almost says something about the insecurity of a director or the insecurity of an actor?
Sometimes it is. Yeah, sometimes insecurity of the actor or the director or both. I like to feel, to me, what the audience must feel, and what I like to feel as the first audience to see the performance, is that this is happening for the first time. I'm hearing these words for the very first time. And that's what you want to project to the audience. And if you can come out, if an audience can come out of a movie and think, boy, that was just so real, because it was those words must have been said the first time. Mm-hmm. So I try to make them happen the first time. Now, it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's more difficult. Sometimes you have coverage on the thing. The scene you just showed with Sean and Tim on the porch. Sean had a very, very difficult scene there. So what I did is I set it up and did all the shots up to it. I introduced Tim on the porch, and he's lighting, and he looks around, and there he is, and I took him out, and I brought it across from the backside, and then I got set on Sean for the way the shot was going to move as the sequence progressed, and then I just re-rolled it. There's no running or anything. I just didn't want to burn him out, because I know it's very difficult. Somebody starts going 8 or 10 or 12 takes, and and the guy is just dry as a bone. And I don't mean just eye moisture. I mean, mentally wrung out. It's very tough stuff anyway. And every father is watching this is going to be squirming in their seat at this kind of scene, and feeling, and mother too, for that. They're all going to feel for him there. But I just wanted to give him the opportunity to say it for the very first time, and then I did it in very little coverage, and I came around, and Tim was very cooperative, being supportive, and doing his part last, because he was more reacting than Sean was.
I suspect that that's because you're an actor. You understood that, and that would influence your knowledge of that.
Well, yeah, it is, because I direct in the way I would like to be directed, and so I like to come in to a set, and I like to bring what I can bring, and then if that's bad, or there's something wrong with it, or the director has an added interpretation, or some other innuendo that I can add to it, then so be it. But I like to at least come in with what I've got first. I don't want somebody to come in and say, you place your hands here, you go to here, and please say the line like this, and they tell you how to read the line.
You don't want
I worked for a director years ago who was a wonderful director.
I would love to have been there.
Vittorio De Sica.
Yeah, right.
And he gave you line readings. He'd say, look me, and then he'd come in and he'd walk in and he'd do the thing, and I'd always laugh because he was a rather jovial guy and a little on the heavy set side, and he'd dance around and do the kind of things, and so I'd go, okay, and I didn't object to it. Now, if it had been an American director, I probably would have said, hey, knock it off, let me just come in, I'll come in and show you what I can do. But he was so charming doing it that it was great fun. But normally, I like to see the baggage. I like to see what the bag of tricks is, and then unravel it, and then set. It's up to me to set a nice atmosphere of which everyone can work, which is calm, and that the least amount of adrenaline is expelled before the scene goes, and save it for the scene, not save it in all kinds of nervous gestures and screwing around on my part.
Does every film you make reflect something of you? Philosophy, attitude, where you are in your life? I thought you'd do that. See, I didn't want you to do that to me.
Okay. No,
you know what I mean. I'm not trying to be everybody.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the Unforgiven, was it you wanted to talk about in some way a guy going back to where he'd been and his age and all of that?
Well, I like that aspect of it. I like the retribution, the man seeking for retribution, the man seeking, living the fantasy of a long deceased wife. He's actually true. He's actually a monogamous relationship with a deceased wife, and all those little intricacies made that story so pleasing. But it also gave me an opportunity to explore violence in a Western genre, which is famous for a certain amount of violence, a certain amount of gunplay, but show what happens to people, the ramifications of violent acts. And I think one of my favorite scenes in the picture is when the three guys, including my character, or Morgan Freeman, and we're up on the hill, and we assassinate this guy, just blindly assassinate this guy, who happened to be along.
Right.
He was
innocent among the others.
He was innocent among the others, but he happened to be along, so we took him out. But the whole deal, and the fact that Morgan's character could not finish him off, and I had to finish it off, much like you'd see an animal suffering in the road, and then you have this kid who can't quite see it because his vision isn't that good, and so and he's just jumping up and down because of the excitement. But these two older guys are not excited at all by it. They're affected by it, and that's when I started experimenting with the idea that violence begets violence, or the violence leaves a person with ramifications that they're going to have the rest of their life.
You said, and I quoted this in my introduction to you, this is as good as I can do. Meaning, this is one where it all came together. You had the right actors, the right script, your own sense of commitment to tell the story, the right location, right music.
Yeah, it's what I wanted to put down. I think most pictures, a lot of pictures come out the way you intended them, but sometimes it just depends on your material as to what strengths it has. And this one came out. I had the dream cast. I had this cast of just wonderful players, and not just our 6 people we talked to before. Even our smaller parts are really, I think, I'm really excited about. I'm as excited about those too, but I can't name off all the players because that would take a long time.
But I'll tell you one. Didn't you give Dennis a small, tiny little role in the parade?
Yeah, that maybe was the only shaky part. Yeah, Dennis was an extra. He got to ride in the car in the parade.
Yeah.
But to me, that it's the detail to the small parts that adds in with these really good players to make the piece work. And so then when it works, now it's up to see what it's like again.
When you make a movie like this, when you're 73,
yeah,
does it make you say, oh man, I mean, I just want to go out and do it again, and I want to be as good as it was here. I want to see if it all comes together one more time. I mean, can you not? Am I right or wrong? Or is that silly? I mean, in other words, you're a golfer. You've just 72. You know, you've been playing scratch golf on this. I mean, don't you want to just get back out there and see if I can do this again?
I'd like to be able to. I'd like to be able to shoot 72 or 73 and sometimes 83. Or,
I mean, do you dream of shooting your age?
I don't dream about it because I'm a realist. But at the same token, I try to do the best I can and enjoy the sport.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I mean, this has all come together. I mean, you just say, man, where's another Mystic River?
But you know, somewhere there'll be something. Somewhere there'll be something. I feel that I've been fortunate enough in the 90s, for instance, the 90s through, which I include up through today, as to do some of my better work, I think. And I think there's no reason. I think my game is stronger than it was maybe in the 80s, maybe in the 70s. Though I did a few films there that I'm proud of. But I'm looking for always looking for good material. Somebody said the other day, "Would you like to do another Western?" Well, you know, easier said than done. How do you revisit that genre with just a potboiler or an imitation of something you've done before? When you've done as many of them as I have, then there's an awful lot of repetition pops up.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Why do you think it was better in the 80s and 90s? I mean, you know, you said I've done some of my best work in the 90s. The 90s was a very good decade, including Unforgiven and other things. Why? What was it there? Was it simply you had grown, you had matured, you had had more experiences, or is it more?
I think so. Everyone reaches their peak in life at certain ages. Sometimes you know.
You reach it at 72?
Sometimes, you know, well,
you're a hero to everybody.
I'm not talking about everything, you know. But it's, I sure as heck feel, in work-wise, I feel that I'm doing the best work I can possibly do at this particular time, and maybe it's because I just I'm more relaxed. I've had a very nice career, and I just more relaxed about it all. Maybe I'm just happier in my existence, life, married life, personal life, whatever you want to call it, and so it's just I'm just feeling on a good work level. Now, if the material just keeps coming in, if there's another script or book or script that comes in as interesting as this in another direction, it'd be fine. If you're revisiting a Western genre, it would have to be something equally as innovative as David Peoples' script was back then.
Thank you for coming. Great to see you.
Thank you, Charles. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Good to have you. It's a great movie, Mr. River. It's a great cast. He did the music. It's a great screenplay. And it's a powerful story that says something that we ought to hear. Thank you for joining us.